small, weak woman, 5'6" and 118 pounds. I'm a university student who lives with my mom. I take my city subway system to and from school, and I've never had any problems with it before. On Mondays and Wednesdays, I have a class that ends at 7:15 p.m. I've never been concerned about it because the route from my classroom to the train station goes through a segment of downtown that is filled with high-class hotels. So it's very well lit, and there's always police around. Not to mention that a lot of my classmates also ride the train and take the same route. But yesterday, I had to go to the bathroom after class. So by the time I got to the train station, all of my classmates had already left on their own trains. Part of me thinks that if I had just held it, my night would have gone so much better. I got to the train station and sat down on a bench to wait. I have these huge over-the-ear Bluetooth headphones, the kinds that are also an accessory. Yesterday, I was just using them as earmuffs. I didn't have any music playing, but these are quality headphones, so outside sound is still pretty muffled even with them off. So I was sitting there with my headphones on, playing Pokemon on my 3DS, with a bald man at the other end of the bench. Some guy walks up and wants to sit between us, so I scoot over without being asked, because that's just what you do. New guy starts talking to bald guy. I can't hear what they're saying because of the headphones. Then new guy turns and gives me this friendly pat on the back and says something to me. I pulled my headphones off one ear because I thought he wanted something. This guy just kind of babbles at me. I couldn't really understand what he was saying because I don't hear very well in the first place. Not enough to need aids, but enough that I talk loudly and normal speaking voices sound quiet to me. My standard thing for when this happens is to ask them to repeat themselves, or just kind of smile and nod, which is what I did. Then he finally speaks up more and asks my name, holds out his hand to shake. I say my name and go to shake his hand. Instead of shaking it, he pulls it up and kisses the back. That was when I knew that things weren't right. He starts to ask me about myself. First about how old I am, then if I drink alcohol, then about my game and the progress Nintendo has made since putting it out. Old game. He goes on about alcohol for a while, asking how much I drink, and talking about how much he drinks. The whole time, he's sitting so close and leaning over me, speaking very fast and in something between a mumble and a normal speaking voice. It was really uncomfortable. And over this guy's head, I was giving panic looks at bald guy. I know he saw those looks. He would meet my eyes and then look away. Creepy guy asks me more stuff about what train stop I go to and where I live, which I avoid answering. He mentions that he needs to get off one stop after Uptown Station, which is the station I need to get off at. For info, we were at Downtown Station. I live along the train line, and you can see my condo from Uptown Station. Literally. It's at the end of the road that Uptown Station is on, in a T formation, between Downtown Station and Uptown Station. There are 5 other stations. My train comes, and I quickly go, "Well, this is my train. Bye, sir," and get the hell away from him and onto the train. I remember fervently hoping he wouldn't follow me. He didn't follow at first, so I didn't think he would be getting on the train. So I sat down in a completely empty seat and put my bag on the seat next to me. The train has benches with 2 seats on each bench. If I'd known he was going to be getting on the train, I would have sat next to one of the women on there and pretended that I knew her. Creepy guy got on right before the train left. Before he did, bald guy, who had sat down in front of me, smiled at me and said, "Don't worry. He's a weirdo, but he's harmless." I cannot tell you how pissed off I am at this fuckhead. Creepy guy may have been harmless to him, but I was terrified and looked to him for help multiple times throughout the train ride. And this bald-headed fuckwit would look me in the eye, acknowledge my fear, and then look away and make conversation with other men on the train. Fuck this guy. I hope he trips and falls face first into a cactus. Now this next part, I don't really have an explanation for. I know that this was dumb, but it's like I froze up. My southern-bred manners kicked in. This guy came onto the train and started looking around for me. I froze and thought, oh shit. He spotted me, walked up, and said, "Can I sit next to you?" I wanted to say no so badly, but I couldn't speak, and my body just went into autopilot. I moved my bag off the seat and onto my lap. I was trapped between him and the wall of the train. His entire body was just pressed up against me. There wasn't an inch of him that wasn't pressed against my side. I was just kind of frozen, facing straight forward and staring at my game. When he talked, he did it with our cheeks only an inch apart. He started mumbling and chattering at me again. I could barely understand him. He asked me about my game again, and then got into weirder topics. He asked me if I listen to rap music, and then congratulated me for saying no. Asked if I dated black guys, if I had a boyfriend, if I had a girlfriend. He asked me if I lived alone, where I lived. I lied, obviously. As we got closer and closer to my stop, I got more and more scared. I was so scared he was going to follow me home. It's a straight shot from the station to my condo. You literally can't miss it. I was giving panic eyes to everyone there. Men, women, out the window. Anyone who would look at me. They all looked away. And creepy guy saw me giving the looks multiple times. It's just kind of confirmation to me that he had bad intentions. If a normal, albeit weird, guy was just trying to make conversation with the girl, saw her making panic eyes to people, they would realize something was up and that they were being creepy. But this guy just didn't give a damn. I don't know how I can properly express how terrified I was, guys. It all looked so clinical and factual written down, but this felt like life and death to me. He pulled dozens of folded up papers out of his pocket and started sorting through them. He picked one up and started writing on it, all the while mumble chattering about racist Chinese ladies and racist bald guy. Meanwhile, my stop was coming up, and I was still panicking. My stop comes, and I stand up. He had his legs up so I couldn't get out. I very forcefully said, "Sir, this is my stop. I need to go," and he scrambles up out of my way. A billion more papers, a folded-up notebook, and an unopened condom packet fell out of his pockets. I get to the door, the train comes to a stop, and my fears are proven true. He gathers up all his stuff and follows me out. Remember that he said the stop he needed was the one after the stop I get off at. I managed to text one-handed in my pocket and send, "Help, man follow, Uptown Station," to my mom. She doesn't reply. I managed to turn my headphones and connect them to my phone. Again one-handed in my pocket, and I call her. She doesn't reply. I'm nearly hyperventilating. I turn to move fast enough to lose this guy since he's dropping his collection of stuff everywhere. But he gets himself organized and catches up to me before I reach the escalators. I've been continually calling my mom this whole time. Creepy guy follows me up the escalator and out the gates. At this point, I stop. There's no way in hell I was going to go home and show this guy where I lived. He asked me which way I was going next. I sort of lied and said that I was waiting for my mom to come pick me up. He said that he would wait with me. I tried to convince him that it would be okay for him to leave. He insisted on staying. At this point, I pulled my phone out and was calling my mom publicly. He leans in super close and goes, "Oh, Penny, I know her. Good-looking lady," and starts going on about how he knows my mom and how pretty and nice she is. Which is fucking bullshit. My mom is a high-class accountant who works for a massive scholarly organization, and this guy is certainly not the type of person she comes in contact with. I give up on calling my mom. He gives me the paper he had been writing on. It had, assuming it was real, his full name, email address, and 2 phone numbers. He kept saying to call him if I wanted a job. I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure." Then he pulls out another paper and pen, hands it to me. He asks for my full name, email, and phone number. I gave him a fake number and handed it back. He said, "No, your full name too." I told him, "Oh no, I'm sorry, sir. My mama wouldn't be very happy if I gave that out." He starts trying to convince me that it would be okay. At this point, I panic. and shove the paper with the fake number at him and say, "I'm sorry, sir, I have to go," and literally just run the fuck away, down the stairs, to the street. My mom finally calls me back. Her phone had been on silent. I was terrified and kept looking behind me to see if he was following me, because he started to when I started to run. Mom leaves the condo and runs towards the station. We meet in the middle. I've never been so relieved to see my mom. She brought me home and kept an eye out over our shoulders for the guy. I still have the paper with his supposed full name and contact info. I just feel like I need to share this story because I'm still scared. I had to go back to both of those stations today. I was terrified he would still be there. I was in fight or flight the whole walk to the station. Thank God that wore off by the time I got to my class. But I'm still scared I'm going to encounter him again. I'm still on campus. I'm going to have to go back to those stations again today. I'm so anxious that he'll be there. I just felt like I needed to talk about it so I wouldn't be scared anymore. You know? So at the time, I was a 16-year-old female working at McDonald's. Now, at the McDonald's I worked at, when you're on the headset, where you answer people at the drive-thru, you're normally required to be at the first window to also take payment. My job position was customer care manager at the time, so my job was meant to be on the front desk, but 99% of the time, they required me behind the tills. So I was having a normal day, working a long shift, but having a normal working day. I happened to be on the headset and first window that day. Anyway, my headset buzzes, letting me know there's someone at my drive-thru lane. I go through the first window to answer my customer, and this is how the conversation ensued. Me: "Hello, welcome to McDonald's. What can I get for you?" Him: "Oh wow, you've got a beautiful voice." His voice was very grunty and husky sounding, not off-putting. We have all sorts of customers come through McDonald's every day, so nothing gave me the creeps at this point, but his voice was very recognizable. Me: "Thank you, sir. How very flattering. What can I get you?" Him: "I haven't decided yet." Long pause. "Can I just come around to the first window to decide? I want to see who I'm talking to." Now, we weren't very busy, and at this point, Creeper hadn't actually creeped me out. I mean, all he had done was pay me a compliment, and we quite often had people complain that they liked the face-to-face contact, so this was definitely not unusual to get a request like this. Me: "Yes, sir, that's fine." Him: "Wow, you are just as beautiful as you sound." Me: "Thank you, sir. Have you decided on what you're having?" Him: "Are you an option?" I laughed this off. It was my first job, and I wasn't the rude kind of person when someone was paying me a compliment. I must also point out this man must have been in his 60s. I remember he had one lazy eye that looked to the left, painfully awful teeth, and patchy dark brown hair. At this point, I was a little bit uncomfortable, but was still more than willing to take his order. Him: "All of a cheeseburger." Me: "Okay, sir. Are you paying cash or card?" Without answering my question, he started asking where I'm from and how old I was, etc., etc. But it wasn't until his last few questions that I got super weirded out. Him: "What time do you finish work?" Me: 7:30. Why? I didn't finish at 7:30, but 7:30 was the first number to come to my head. I finished at 8 and was probably going to do some overtime too, but I wasn't about to let him know that. Him: "I can meet you if you want. I can pick you up outside and we can go somewhere." All the while he's saying this, he has this horrendous grin on his face and keeps winking at me. Me: "I'm really sorry, sir, but I'm not allowed to meet customers outside of work, as is against our employee policy." This was utter bullshit, but I needed him to leave me alone. He carries on being insistent, but not getting the picture. I cut the conversation short. Me: "Anyway, sir, sorry to be rude, but can I have the money for your cheeseburger?" Him: "Ah, yes, sorry. See you at 7:30. Off he drove to the next window. I was gobsmacked. I'd already said I wasn't going to see him. I was a little bit shocked, but I was not going to go over there and give him the satisfaction of talking to me again. My coworker came to me and said, "Ew, that guy had a major crush on you. He wanted your number, but I didn't give it to him. He's old enough to be your dad." Anyway, I explained exactly what had happened, and how uncomfortable it made me. 7:30 came, and my coworker was spooked. Creeper is waiting in the car park for me, just like he said he would. He sat halfway down the car park, and you can see him just staring in. Our car park wasn't very big. It only had 4 rows of parking spaces, so he wasn't that far away, and would have clocked me the minute I walked out the door. At this point, I'm freaking out and head to the back of the store, where hopefully he can't see me. I had to stay at the back of the store for 40 minutes before we knew it was safe to come out. Fast forward a week, and the creeper is back on drive-thru. And guess who's back on headset at window 1? Me. I heard his voice and recognized it straight away. "I was hoping I'd hear your voice again. Why didn't you meet me the other day?" Me. "Just 1 second, sir. I'll be with you in a second." I immediately handed my headset to my manager and gave him a quick briefing of the situation. He gladly took the headset and dealt with the customer from start to finish. When my manager came back to let me know he had gone, he said that the creeper had been asking my name, my address, my surname. My manager said he was the creepiest guy he had ever met, and I was never to have anything to do with him again. If he came to my work while I was there afterwards, my manager would have me head to the back room while he dealt with the creep. He still always asks about me, every time. So creeper at the McDonald's, let's not meet again. I'm in my 20s, and my partner just asked me what my cousin is like since they've only met briefly. I told him some fun stories from our childhood, and then tried to find some words to describe her character. One of the first ones was paranoid. But then I stopped to ask myself why I think of her as paranoid, and I suddenly remembered a childhood memory I'd completely forgotten. When I was about 10 and she was about 12, I visited her house for a sleepover. I arrived in the early afternoon, and we swapped Goosebumps books and listened to The Three Investigators, which is much more popular here in Germany than in America. We then decided to go get snacks for a movie we wanted to see on TV later. Her mom, my aunt, gave us $10, so much money when you're a kid, and sent us on our way to a nearby supermarket before it got dark. The area she lived in was near a big intersection outside of the city, with big chain supermarkets and department stores people only ever go to by car. We bought our candy and crossed the main road back to the quiet residential district. She noticed a tall man in a yellow t-shirt following us across the road. Unless he also lived in one of the few houses, a slim chance. He had no reason to be there. She told me how she saw him in the shop and how he had followed us across the street. She panicked a little and told me to walk faster. I did, even though I thought she was overreacting. After all, we were both always reading spooky stories. I was sure they must have gotten to her head. He also picked up his pace and followed us for several streets before we arrived at her house and rang the doorbell, and he hurried into the other direction. I was a very naive child, and all I had ever been told about stranger danger was to not get into a car with someone who offers you candy. I was not worried in the slightest. I didn't see why she was freaked out at all. When we got into bed that night, she said something like, "Now he knows where I live. I'm so scared. What if he comes here again tonight?" And I replied something like, "And does what? Murder us? Why would someone do that? He doesn't even know us." I completely forgot about the whole thing, but started thinking of her as paranoid. She probably thinks of me as naive. So to the man in the yellow t-shirt who followed 2 little girls home at dusk, let's not meet again.